Fancy your brew?
Good afternoon. We're recording from HMS Kent. We're in the middle of the Western Mediterranean, having sailed from Alicante this morning. It's the middle of the afternoon watch, or 2 o'clock for the non-mariners in you. Over the last week and for the next 2 weeks, Kent's been working with NATO's Standing Maritime Group 2, and will rejoin HMS Queen Elizabeth and the rest of the Carrier Strike Group in 2 weeks' time. So I've got PO Stansfield and AB Castello here with me. Has everyone got a brew with them?
Yes.
Cool. So what's your wet of choice then? We'll start with you.
So I'm drinking Nescafe Zero.
Yeah.
Intenso.
Ooh.
With a dash of milk.
Dash of milk. So how would we say that in the Navy? Coffee white 1, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Claire?
I'm actually having this, so it's strawberry, aloe, and cucumber. It's meant to like cleanse you. So I'm actually on that at the minute. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can top it up just a bit of hot water.
Yeah. Top it
Good
up.
to go. Very nice. I'm simple as well. Just a coffee white 1, and we're good to go from there. So the team at the Ministry of Defence has given us a selection of questions and topics to discuss. But before we do that, can we just go around and introduce ourselves? So we'll start with you, Claire, please. Just what you do on board, where you're from, and we'll go from there.
Right, so I'm AB Castello. I'm a writer on board, and I deal with stuff like people's pay, move and tracking the ship. So every 24 hours, like our location needs to be like updated on JPA. I also deal with travel, S71. So that's like people on board needs to be fed and stuff like that. Yeah.
Ship's administrator. Basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
You run the behind the scenes.
Stuck behind a
don't you?
computer, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Vicky?
So I'm PO Stansfield. I am the gas turbine and transmissions engineer on board. Look after our sprint engines, give the ship its maximum power capability, and I also maintain both shaft lines from anything from the gearbox all the way down to the propeller. All that kit belongs to me.
Cool. So while Claire's behind a computer in the ship's office, you're in an engine room, making sure that we can run where we need to go and all of that kind of stuff. Cool. My name's Lieutenant Pierce Tattersall. I'm one of the officers of the watch on board, which basically means I just drive the ship. I get told where to go by the navigator, and I just follow the route. I've also got a few other secondary jobs on board, including organising this podcast. So let's get started. So we've been on Operation Fortis, which is the operational name for the Carrier Strike Group's deployment in 2021. We spent the first month conducting exercise Strike Warrior off the north coast of Scotland, working with HMS Queen Elizabeth, the rest of the group, and other NATO ships, and then went down to the Bay of Biscay and exercised off Portugal with NATO ships from SNMG 1 and SNMG 2, as well as a few Allied submarines. What's been the best bit of it so far?
The best bit so far for me was actually getting a run ashore in Alicante. Obviously, with the situation with COVID, we didn't really know if that would have been possible, but it was really nice just having a break from that, like working hard but also playing hard as well.
It's been busy, hasn't it? Really, really busy. But the tempo has kind of been non-stop. So we've been in defence watches quite a bit, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly.
So defence watches are where we go 6 hours on and then 6 hours off. And you do that so that there's people closed up 24 hours a day to deal with any sort of situation. But it can be quite busy and quite tiring quite quickly. Yeah. So it was nice to get ashore.
Yeah, the MEs do 12s.
Yeah.
So for my department, we do 12-hour shifts, and a lot of the time, apart from our main job, we have secondary jobs like Lieutenant Tattersall, and we'll stand watches, and we do 3 hours about. So we'll do 3 hours on, and then we'll have an on-off watch, and then we go back on watch, and then same. And it can be quite grueling after 12 hours, especially when you're doing it for 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. It's a completely different way of living, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of looking ahead a little bit, what are you looking forward to being with the Carrier and CSG?
I'm kind of hoping that if we do get Japan as a stop, Fuji,
Yeah.
just because that'll be incredible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it'll be another tick off for
Yeah.
things I've done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just kind of soaking it all in because it's my first deployment, and I just want to enjoy every moment. I know there's like good times and bad times, even the bad times. Like I just want to take everything in because it's an experience at the end of the day, isn't it? So
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's what the first large carrier deployment in 25 years or something like that. Why do you think it's so important?
Is it to build a relationship with other countries?
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things, isn't it? We've just left the EU, and the government's pushing the kind of global Britain franchise, sending an aircraft carrier and an aircraft carrier group around the world to have relations with countries like Spain, Jordan, and Japan, among others, is really, really important.
Well, it just expands our trading capabilities as well, doesn't it? And puts us back to being a blue navy rather than the fact we shrank back down to having no aircraft carriers, and we weren't as regarded as we probably once were in terms of being formidable with our size and capability. And now we've kind of restored that, so we need to push out and make sure that everybody knows that.
Like show off a bit, yeah.
Did either of you come up when we did it's called the Fotex, when we took the photos with the NATO ships last
So
time?
I was doing fizz at the upper deck, just after it finished, and it gave me goosebumps a little bit. I know that sounds a bit like throbbing, but it was really nice seeing all the ships that close and stuff. Yeah.
16 ships in a submarine. It's quite an impressive sight when you're 500 yards from one.
It's impressive how quickly that submarine disappeared, though. Blink and you missed it.
Yeah, exactly. You've seen the jets take off, haven't you?
From the carrier.
Yeah.
I think I have, yeah. I think when we were doing a RAS one time, I think I saw that from a distance, yeah.
No, definitely.
Sat up on a forecastle. Just before we went to the Barents, when we was playing around with it then, me and my oppo went and sat up by the 4-5 gun and we was watching them take off, and it was quite surreal just how slow they seemed to just sort of take off.
It's elegant, isn't it? The way they do
they just literally look like they're not going to make it. And then it's like, that's not going fast enough to get off there. It's not. Oh, no, it's up. It's up.
But the way they come in as well, it's really kind of nice and smooth and controlled. How do you find downtime? What do you do to relax?
So for me, to be honest, 12 works better for me because as much as you've got a 12-hour long period to work through, you also get a 12-hour off watch.
Yeah.
Where you get time to rest and recuperate, get quite a bit of sleep. You can go and do fizz, so exercise on the upper deck.
Yep.
Read. I've managed to get through 3 books during defence watches.
Nice.
And you get time to do a bit of recreation, so play Switch, have a brew, have a wet, whatever. It's quite nice.
And just kind of chill out.
Yeah.
You got a Kindle, haven't you? Which is great especially because there's not much space on board. We do have a ship's library, but it's nice to be able to just have your own stuff yourself. Do you have a Kindle?
I don't have it. I really don't like reading, to be honest.
No.
So not my thing. I did try to get into it actually in defence watches, but it didn't work out. I was just falling asleep at that laptop.
What do you do to relax then?
Well,
apart from your strawberry and aloe tea.
Yeah. To get away from like just everyday life on the ship, I just like doing fizz. So I try to find time to do fizz, but it's really hard in 6s, so I just find myself coming off watch and just rushing straight to bed.
Yeah.
I remember when I first did 6s, I used to skip scran just so I could sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is hard trying to find that balance in 6s. I'm still trying to like work my way around it, but we have been trialing 8s, haven't we? So that's been amazing compared to 6s. Like 8 hours on is like grim, but when you get that 8 hours off, you can do a lot more things. And we even had chance last time to do some on-watch phase and stuff like that. So it's good,
So do you go to circuits, or do you like to do your own thing?
No, I've been to circuits once, but I kind of just like doing my own thing. So most of the times I go to the winch well and just do weights and stuff.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of different places where you can do fizz on board. One of those is the winch well. So our total array is down there at the minute, but there are a few weights down there. Up on the upper deck, there's some weights and a couple of rowers put on the one of the platforms. The flight deck, when we're not at flying stations, is open for circuits, which is run by our physical trainer on board, who normally does the circuits once or twice a day. So there's plenty of opportunity and scope to do Fizz. It's just managing your own time, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It's better now that we've got through the bay. So obviously, when we're in UK waters, the sea state is variable at best.
At best.
Like, I don't mind it when it's rough. I prefer it when it is bouncy because it's funny, and the scran queue's always empty. So it's easier to get food. However, for me, there's nothing better than running in the sunshine. So if I was at home, I would obviously be running with the dog. And we'd be off on a little jolly adventure. But up here, like here, as soon as you start getting that warm sun, and it's all like, it's better for running on the upper deck, I think. So I'll go and do my own. I'm not really into mandated Fizz.
Well, and hopefully now that we're in the Mediterranean and heading kind of south and east, it should be nicer weather throughout. What type of dog do you have?
So I have a beagle.
A beagle. You go running with it, do you?
He's a bit stop-start sometimes. Once you're getting past that, come on, we're going for a run. He's like, he does run quite well, but he's my boy, so.
There you go. What's his name?
Oscar.
Oscar
Nice.
the beagle. You got any pets as well?
So back home I do. So we've got, like, growing up, I've had loads of pets. So we've had like dogs, cats, had rabbits, birds. We've literally had like loads of animals, but I don't own a house here yet in the UK, so I don't have a pet. Do
you want to talk a bit about where you're from?
So
how you kind of joined the Navy?
So I'm from St. Vincent. I don't know if many people know that because it's a very small island next to Barbados. And I decided I wanted to join the Navy in 2017. So I signed up. It was February 2017 when I signed up. It was kind of a long process, and it is kind of hard trying to apply from back home because obviously you have to send off documents, and then that takes a while. You have to like wait for them to respond before you can move on to the next step. And I grew up there all my life, so it was a big step moving from the Caribbean to the UK. But loving it so far. And you got another couple of years left, haven't you? I got a couple of years left, so it should be good. I try to go back home like once a year anyways, like mostly for Christmas. I like spending Christmas with my family, you know.
Did you manage to get back last year?
I did get back last year. It was a bit more of a hassle with COVID. Had to have like a lot of documentation and obviously like your negative COVID tests and stuff like that, but it was worth it.
I'll jump back to you, Vicky. Do you want to talk about where you're from and kind of how you joined the Navy?
So joined the Navy 31st of August 2008. They tried to make me go air engineer. I dismissed that straight away. I wanted to.
You could have been out back out flying.
No, I prefer bigger engines. So the principles are the same. It's a gas turbine. Helicopters have gas turbines, but for me, I like the marinized version. So more power basically. I joined as a baby stoker in 2008. I just worked my way through. Live in the country. Obviously, I'm northern. Tell by my northern tones.
I couldn't tell, no.
I call it the Shire. I feel like it's in between, Mordor and some sort of other Tolkien reference. But from a town called Todmorden, which is in West Yorkshire, on the Lancashire border as well. So my backyard is the Pennines, and I've grown up sort of just exploring there really, and I've always had sort of a wanderlust appetite. So for me, joining the Navy was like a logical thing because it gave me the freedom to sort of expand my horizons. So I've been quite fortunate as a kid growing up with like family holidays and whatnot. In terms of, I spent summers in Monaco, been to other places, but the Navy's given me the footsteps really to go further afield. So this deployment for me will be the furthest I've been away in terms of travelling anywhere in the world. I've done a lot of Europe myself, like gone backpacking and stuff around places, but in terms of getting out and the wider reach, this is been the most.
No, definitely. And that kind of sense of wanderlust, I think it's a reason a lot of people do join the Navy. The ability to go to far-flung places and places you wouldn't normally go on holiday either. Like, I mean, saying that, we've just been to Alicante on the Costa Blanca. I think a fair few people have been around the corner to Benidorm before and things like that. But different stops will offer different things, won't they? So hopefully get to Petra at some point. Out in Japan, there'll be plenty of culture, won't there? Will be different. In terms of, so we're going to be spending a lot of time over the next 6 to 7 months at sea. What is it kind of you like about being at sea, and then on the flip side, what do you not like at sea? What do you kind of miss about it?
I guess when you're at sea, it is like, well, it depends what state we're in, I should say. You kind of get into a routine. I feel like every day feels like the same. So you kind of get into a routine, and I sometimes like having like my own little routine. So I think that's what I like about being at sea. I like when it's slightly rough. Like when it rocks you to bed, I love that. It just puts me straight to bed.
Yeah.
In terms of what I don't like, not being able to do face. So when it gets that bad, or if the upper deck goes out of bounds or anything like that, and you literally have nowhere to do face, or if you're streaming, you can't go to the winch well either. So for that, I kind of go mad a bit. And obviously defense watches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think people would be surprised at how much we rely on the ability to do exercise, how it keeps us, most of us sane?
It does keep you sane. I feel like there's only so much you can do. I feel like we're kind of just trapped, aren't we? So there's only so much you could do. And I know other people have their different outlets, like you read or people do other things. But for me, I literally go mad if I don't do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people on board would probably agree with you.
But it is like getting into a nice routine. That's what I like about being at sea.
It's weird for me. I like the fact that you look out. I like looking at the sea. So when you watch the sea state and the waves, see like the occasional dolphin, porpoise, whatever, that's cool. But I like the fact that every ocean and every sea looks ever so slightly different, and you can tell as soon as you've transited through a patch of water. And I like the idea that you're going somewhere, but you're not quite sure where. And I think with COVID this year, the last 2 years, whatever, it has literally been we are going somewhere, we just don't know where. And with the stops, like with the diplomatic stops we got last time in Reykjavik and Gibraltar, that makes it worthwhile. Like for me, that makes it worthwhile, and you can look at 1,000 different sunsets and not one will ever be the same. So for me, there's still some kind of magic about it.
I think it's sunrises for me more than sunsets. So I get to see more of them than most as a bridge watchkeeper. I would agree with the sea. It's ever so subtly different.
I don't think I've ever really noticed that, to be fair.
It is. So like at the minute, if you go top, the ocean or the sea is like a deep blue. But then if you go to places in the Gulf, it's almost green.
Oh, is it? Okay.
And there's like, especially at night, if you're up there just around the time it's going dark, you can see the algae glowing in the sea.
Yeah,
and
you've seen that before.
I've never seen it, no.
Well,
I don't think I go up top enough.
Need to come up to the bridge more, clearly. Come see what's going on.
It's not the place to be, is it?
No, but definitely. And it's, especially so last year we were up in the high north, in the Barents Sea, out in the Baltic, and then out in the North Atlantic, doing a lot of exercise to kind of prepare us for this trip. And you do notice the differences and things like that. But at times last year in the Barents, when we were working with the Americans, the sun wouldn't set, which is like not many people can say they've gone through a day without the sun setting, which was really, really cool. For me, I think what I like most about being at sea is you're in your own little world almost, aren't you? You're still connected to people. You can still call home and talk to them. You still get the news and everything, but what you're doing is detached. And now that we're away and working with the carrier, it's going to be a little different than kind of typical deployments we've been on, because we're not as detached as where we previously thought. We've got to work with the carrier and work for them, make sure they're protected from submarines and things like that. I think the other good thing on here is the food. I think the chefs on here are amazing. What would you say is your favorite meal on board?
Favorite meal on board? I really like when they do like Italian, so like lasagna or the spag bowl's really nice most times.
I like it when they do the Moroccan style food.
Yeah.
So I like it when they've got couscous and tuna steaks with
Definitely.
salad.
I think in terms of the menu choices, though, there's a fairly decent variety. We had that really good Chinese night the other night. Didn't we?
Yeah, Chinese night. We have like curry nights and stuff. Yeah,
Scottish night.
Scottish night.
Yeah.
We haven't had a Caribbean night in a while, have we?
We did one last October.
Last
Were you here for that
October, I
one?
was here for
Yeah,
that one.
That was
really
incredible.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
we
was
should
really
do
good.
one
Not done
soon.
one since,
We
have
need
we?
to. Yeah, we need to.
Put a
Definitely.
good word in for it.
I will. I will try.
Yeah. In terms of COVID, how do you think? What's it been like being on a ship compared to just at home? So obviously we had a bit of time. I say a little bit of time off just before we deployed, didn't we? Was it kind of weird coming from a restrictive COVID environment to on a ship where we're considered our own family bubble?
Personally, I prefer it because you've got the element of freedom to wander around without having to wear a face mask. And it's quite prevalent when we was in Alicante, having to walk around with a face mask in like 25-degree heat.
Just got used to not wearing it.
Horrendous.
Yeah.
So, and you were very in the Navy. Obviously, as soon as we turn out of Pompey Harbour, Portsmouth Harbour, we lose all TV signal unless we're going on a certain course and bearing.
Yeah.
And therefore, we've been quite sheltered from the impact of COVID, I think.
Yeah.
And it's been quite nice, but then there's such a stark contrast when we get back alongside and we have to adhere to all the protocols and the procedures.
Yeah.
And you don't really realise just how much of an impact COVID has had until you're actually walking from a less extreme environment straight into it.
Yeah.
So
No, definitely. I think one of the good things is we're all 100% vaccinated, aren't we? So we've all had both shots on here. And that was something that was really pushed for before we deployed, which gives us that flexibility. But it's going to be hard throughout the trip because it's all dependent on how each country's doing at the time. So Spain, thankfully, we were able to get ashore in, but I think there's going to be some stops where we're going to just be unlucky, which will be frustrating, but we'll make the most of it and kind of go from there. So, what's the weirdest thing to happen so far? On Kent, we'll go for.
On Kent, weirdest thing? Well, there's been a lot of weird things on Kent, but I don't know. So on board, I'm can't really go into too much detail. I'm duty first aider on board, and I had my first casualty the other day, and I literally I was nervous, but so I think that's like the weirdest thing that's happened to me so far, like actually dealing with a real life casualty.
Without naming names.
Without naming names, obviously, and I can't say what happened, but yeah, that's probably the weirdest thing that's happened to me so far, like actually being put into that situation.
Did your training kick in?
It did. I was actually surprised because I always used to say, if I get a casualty, I might faint and become the casualty. But I really handled it well. I'm not gonna lie, I was impressed with myself. So
there you go. Well done. Because how many casualty exercises have we done? How many fires?
That's what I mean. For? We literally do loads of exercises where you never really think that you'd be put in the situation where. Well, it's always obviously it's a possibility, but to get put in the situation where it actually happened. It was quite an experience for me. Yeah.
How about you, Vicky? What's the weirdest thing that's happened on Kent so far for you?
Well, we've had a few. I don't know really. So for me, it would be obviously when we had to sample the fresh water.
Yeah.
So
one of our seals broke, didn't it? In fresh water.
Yeah. So I think that's probably. There's not really anything weird. We have machinery breakdowns. It's just you become so used to dealing with them.
Yeah.
That nothing's
I think
weird anymore.
People would find it like you have breakdowns. Like my car breaks down, I've got to take it to the mechanic straight away. Whereas we just kind of get on and fix it, don't we?
Well, you don't really have a choice, if you lose, especially your sprint engines or any of your cruising engines like the diesel engines, anything on the shaft line, as soon as that's gone, you are literally just a sitting target in the water, because you will just stop dead in the water. So if you don't fix it, there is no marine RAC. We'll get the oars out and start rowing back.
Well, maybe not that much.
Well, I won't be rowing. I'll be like, you start rowing.
Detailing people off. So during Strike Warrior, we had an issue with one of our sonars, and rather than go alongside, we had to go to anchor. So we went into anchor off Skye, one of these smaller little islands. What we didn't realise though, as we were approaching, and what Navs didn't know as he was planning, is in this little bay there must have been hundreds of different fishing buoys. Have you seen them? They're like the small little orange. Some of them are just orange buoys. Some of them are petrol cans that people have just tied down to mark where their fishing pots lie. Anyway, there was loads. And as we were driving in, normally we navigate off points of land and kind of go around there. We weren't navigating off that. We were just avoiding these fishing buoys. So it was like a little obstacle course going in. It was really impressive to watch Navs and the captain manoeuvre it like that. But I'd not seen anything like that. Let's go back a bit, shall we? Let's talk a bit about how you prepared for deployment, because obviously it's quite a long time to be away from family and friends. How did you plan for it? How did you prepare?
I just want to have previous experience, to be honest.
Well, you've done quite a few deployments, haven't you? On different ships. So
I quite liked the fact, this sounds a bit Chad really, but obviously the ship brought out an app, and it was sort of a mandatory checklist. And as much as I kind of begrudged doing that at first, because I thought,
I know everything.
This is not my first rodeo. It was kind of handy to have that. Oh, what have you forgotten this? Or but
definitely, it's a nice little checklist. And in the app, you had to sign for different stages, didn't you? Which was really good.
So for me, this is my first deployment. I didn't really know to prepare myself. I've not really got any like responsibilities. Like I don't really have a house or like stuff like that. So I didn't really have that much preparing to do, obviously compared to, I imagine, you and yourself. So mine was more so mentally preparing myself to be away. It is a bit easier for me because I'm already away from my family anyway. So I'm already kind of in that mental mindset. But I've got a boyfriend here in the UK, so it was just kind of preparing myself to be away from him for that long. Yeah, he's in the Navy as well. He's a submariner. Killing stuff.
So he must be away for...
No, so he's actually never done a patrol. So he's on a boat, but it's down at the minute. So he's actually never done a patrol.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, it was all mental, not...
Yeah, that was kind of the hardest thing, wasn't it? Kind of planning to say goodbye.
Yeah,
so definitely. My fiance and I, we kind of had this hanging over us since I joined the ship. And so it's been a year and a half or whatever. Oh, we're going away for 7 months soon. It's like, oh my God. But we're away now, aren't we? And every day.
Yeah, we're actually doing it. Yeah.
It's a day closer to.
It was a massive build up, though, wasn't it? Like,
yeah, you'll find as well that the start of your deployment, the first 4 weeks is always the hardest. It always drags.
Yeah.
It's that, oh my God, I feel like you've been away for ages.
Yeah.
And then the middle bit sort of just goes quite quickly, and it all sort of blends into one stop after another. And then the final month, you get back into that, oh my God, I just want to get home now, and it's been a while.
Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? I've kind of gone through the list of questions, but no.
I'm pretty good.
Cool. Well, thank you both for your time. I think we've all finished our wets now, haven't we?
Ages ago. Time for a new one.
Time for a new one. We've had plenty of biscuits. So thank you for joining us, and I hope people enjoy the podcast.